Well, good afternoon. Oh, I know. I already know you've been at church this morning. You already seen it. I already know you were at church this morning, and some of you got there this morning at 11, and some of you just left church and you're in church again. But hey, it's all right, because when you're in this house, but first of all, I want to tell you, you need to ease up a little bit. Just ease up just a little bit for me, because I'm not that guy that's going to stand in front of you and you got that real serious face, okay? There's a time to have your serious face, but this is not the day, okay? Have your serious face when it's time. This is not the time. So we're here to honor people today. We're here to honor people that have been through. They've been through something, and they've made it better for me. They made it better for all of us. So as I said, let's lighten up. Let's honor these people today, and let's have some fun today. I am Frank Stowe, Assistant Fire Chief with the Winston-Salem Fire Department. I will be your Master of Ceremony. But first of all, I'd like to just say welcome to Mayor Jones today. We just thank him for being with us today. And I would like to say welcome to Mayor Pro Tem Burke here today for being with us. And so that I do not really mess anything up, I don't know if there are any other council members, or I don't know if there's anyone else out there, but welcome to all of our council members that might be present and any of our city management. So at this time, I'd like to bring up, he's one of our fire department chaplains, but he's a pastor at this church here as well. That'll be Reverend Chad Armstrong. Thank you.
How's everybody doing today? Awesome. Certainly, we'd like to welcome you to the Galilee Missionary Baptist Church on behalf of Reverend Dr. Nathan Scovins and our entire church's discipleship and leadership. We would like to welcome you all here to Galilee today. The Winston-Salem Fire Department, the first responders, and the police department in this city do incredible work day in and day out for so many in our community. And it is our privilege, it is our honor to host and support all the amazing work that happens for this great city. On behalf of our church, we want to say thank you. We want to say Happy Black History Month to those who are here and to those who aren't here but who have sacrificed and served. We hope that you sit back, relax, enjoy this program, enjoy this day, and enjoy your time at Galilee. God bless you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alan Joynes, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem. It's always a pleasure for me to be at this event. To Pastor Scovins and Pastor Armstrong and officers and directors of this great church, we thank you for hosting us once again here at Galilee. And to Chief Thompson and Chief Mayo and the officers of and firefighters of the Winston-Salem Fire Department and Police Department, ladies and gentlemen. It's so appropriate that we include this special ceremony here as part of February, our Black History Month here in Winston-Salem, so we celebrate the contributions of African American public safety officers, firefighters, and other personnel there. We have a little bit of a sad part of today's service, and that is to remember our good friend Mel Sadler, who passed away not too long ago, a few months ago. I had the honor to speak at his funeral, and remember Mel and his calm way of helping to prepare our city for emergencies in our community. I want to recognize especially the firefighters and police officers retired that we are recognizing today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your contributions to our city. And then particularly to our fire engineer, John Powell, as we recognize the heroic action that you took this past year, and we thank you for that. Today, it's my honor to be here with our Mayor Pro Tem Burke to bring you greetings, and I'm going to issue a proclamation for this day. Whereas, having united as one, we see the results of black men and women's advocacy for respect, dignity, and human rights. And whereas these efforts have advanced our common well-being, strengthened our communities, and the fabric of our entire nation and the world. And whereas we celebrate these black men and women in our local community, in our nation, and throughout the world who have advanced the right of minorities and all humanity. And whereas we salute African American men and women who have paved the way for minorities to be entrusted with the Winston-Salem Police Department and Winston-Salem Fire Department's shields of honor and respect. And whereas February 2018 is the 5th annual Winston-Salem Police and Fire Department's joint Public Safety Black History Month celebration. Now therefore, I, Alan Joines, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of February as Public Safety Black History Month in the City of Winston-Salem. And I call upon all of our citizens to observe and commemorate Public Safety Black History Month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities to recognize the contributions of African American police officers and firefighters in Winston-Salem. And I sign this today, the 18th day of February. So again, thank you all for coming out today. Thank you to our retirees for your service to our community. Thank you.
At this time, we will have a selection from Ms. Maya McCoy.
Would you all please stand as we sing Lift Every Voice?
At this time, we'll have remarks from Mayor Pro Tem Vivian H. Burke, Vice Chair of Public Safety Committee, Northeast Ward Council Member. Ms. Burke.
Good afternoon. I said to the mayor, let me make this correction. I'm no longer the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee. Some years ago, I gave up being chairman of the Public Safety Committee. And then I said to the mayor about a few years ago, I said, I'm going to give up being vice chair. Let's give that to someone else. But I want to tell you, as I stand here and I listen and I look and I think about the struggles. When I became an elected official for this city, it was not a good time. It was a bad time. And I'm so pleased that we had people like Larry Little and Virginia Newell when we got elected. We stood up and said, this cannot continue. When I looked as chairman of the Public Safety Committee, appointed to that position by Mayor Wayne A. Corponen, and the people on the aldermen, they voted for me to be the chairman. I've served in that position longer than anyone, and probably longer than anyone would ever be able to say they will serve. And I went to Bill Stewart, and I said to him, things are not right. Sure, our fire department had a lot of minorities. Our police department did not look like it should look, did it, Assistant Chief Red? And I told Bill Stewart that this city ought to be a shining example of humane progress in how we look at all our employees. And I want you, when you get a chance, to go back home and get on your internet and you look at how this city looked in the 70s. Some people will have to stand up and say, enough is enough. Do you think that when you see minorities in the police department who've moved into positions that they're in, that didn't just happen? Very first woman we had, a white female to become the chief. And then we had a black female to become the chief. And then we had one who just walked in here, Roundtree Berry, to become the chief. And now we have another fine woman chief. When I said to Chief Mayo, you inherited some things that's not good for the fire department. And it is for you to make a difference so this fire department can become more diverse. It was once diverse, but things changed. And I want to tell you, we have a city manager, Lee Garrity, who understands clearly that this city is a diverse city. And if we're going to have people feeling good about themselves, then we must make sure that our employees mirror this city. I want to say to the first responders how pleased we are with the job you do. We know that it is not an easy job. And to Ms. Sadler, I want you to know that I appreciate your family very much. And I would ask your husband, is this a safe place to live? And he'll always say, yes, it is a safe place to live. And to our chief of fire, our chief of police, and your staff, my challenge to you still is to make your departments mirror this city so that all citizens in this city can feel proud. Alan Jones knows when I first got elected, he was assigned to work, I don't like to say for me, but he was assigned to work for me. And there were a lot of things that we had to change. And things have changed some. But I want all of you, as citizens of this city, to look around and to say, do I really feel like this is my city? So again, I congratulate all of you who have worked hard in your areas of work. And to the children who are going to be recognized today and their parents, we thank you. So again, to all of us here assembled, may God continue to bless our great city of Winston-Salem, because we know together we can make our city one of the best in the world. Thank you.
Do we have any other members of council or city management present that would like to give a word? Thank you. At this time, and I'm ready for it, at this time, I now present to you the Winston-Salem Police Department Choir under the direction of Captain Danny Watts.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, Mayor Joins, other members of the dais, and to you all who are here today. It is a privilege for me to bring back the Winston-Salem Police Choir. And this is the first time we've sung, and you get to hear. So I say bring back because we did have a police choir many years ago when some of us were much younger than we are now. But we are so happy to bring it back. Shortly after Chief Thompson took her position as police chief, Officer Flo Gregory, Flo, wave your hand. Flo Gregory and I approached Chief Thompson about bringing our choir back. And as you can see, and we'll hear very shortly, she approved. So we are very thankful, Chief, for that. The police choir is a very unique outreach, or as I'd like to call, ministry for the police department. Our hope is that we'll continue to use the choir to maintain our connection and partnership with our community. Now, our choir is made up of sworn police officers, non-sworn civilian personnel, retired police officers, and non-sworn employees. And we even have the wife of one of our sergeants singing with us. So as you can see, we're a very diverse group. And the group that you see standing behind me today is a little less than half of the choir. We had several members who had other obligations this weekend. So today our hope is that you'll be blessed as the choir sings, but we also hope that you will worship with us as we lift up our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ today. So, over the next 4 to 5 minutes, we're going to have church. So I hope that you'll join us and worship with us as the police choir sings "The Storm is Passing Over."
Though the night is dark.
Okay. If the storm was passing over, that means something good. That means it's going away. And then they say, hallelujah, the highest praise. So I'm glad to know that my storm, your storm is passing over. Give them another round of applause to this choir because they surely lifted my soul today. I'm going to go on with this program. I'm going to move on with this program. That's just good news. To know that my storm is passing over. It's not just going to sit there. It's going away. At this time, and I wanted to say this piece as well. You know how sometimes people say that we have lost someone. We haven't lost Mel. We know where his body is. We know where his spirit is. So we haven't lost him. We know that. So at this time, I'd like to call up Chief Thompson, Chief Mayo, members from the Emergency Management, Acting Director Robert Reese, and Emergency Management Coordinator Michelle Brock.
Good afternoon. We are here to celebrate Mel's hard work and his life as we knew it in emergency management. He has left a legacy for us to follow, and we so appreciate Mel for that. Thoughts and prayers are always every day with the family, because I feel what you're going through. So our thoughts and prayers are always with you. So I'll let Robert say a few words about Mel.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Reese, the Acting Director of Winston-Salem South County Emergency Management. First, I'd like to say thank you to Galilee Missionary Baptist Church, to Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, other members of City Council that may be here, the City Manager's Office, and also to our fire and police departments as well. I want to say thank you to everyone for the support we've received. There's no way to say thank you enough. Kind of tell a little bit of a story here. I'm sorry I can't do the show that the choir just put on, but I'll actually try to make it interesting as I can. It won't be quite as short as Michelle. As Eric can tell you, I'm long-winded, as you probably heard from his father a few times. So there's some really important things I think we need to say. I was blessed to meet Mel, believe it or not, back in actually 1987, about the time he came on. I had just entered the volunteer fire service and didn't really think much about it. Met him at some exercise, and our paths never really crossed again until later, probably about the mid-90s. I became an employee with Forsyth County Fire Department, so we were now training together and also working on acquiring equipment, and that's where we had more interaction. And at that point, I really saw the things he was bringing. You could see he was bringing training, exercises, drills, and also acquiring equipment that we all needed to stay safe and to do our jobs right. Well, some more time passed on, and I was blessed, and I really say blessed, in 2015, I became part of his staff at Emergency Management. And looking back, it's like, wow, I never realized that my classmate back in '87 was actually his son. Now, we caught up really quick, I'll put it that way. But I kind of learned things from the very beginning. Mel was just, and you can see my age here, he was my Encyclopedia Britannica, because people would have these off-the-wall questions that there was no answer to. You could Google it, there was no answer there, because some of these things come from the 70s and the 80s. And usually he would give me an answer, somewhat, and I'll explain why here in a second, but he would also look at his desk or through his files and pull out a brochure or some type of document that said, here's where it came from. Now, he would encourage me to go research, not because he didn't know, but he wanted me to take the time to make it mine. And that way I understood what I was researching, and I could learn it more. So I'm very, very thankful for that. Very thankful. And then it grew more after I was there. Didn't realize this could happen, but it did. Usually about 5 o'clock every afternoon was time to leave. I'd be wrapping up, and I'd go past his office, and I would stop in and say my byes before we left. But then we would kind of talk one or two items about work, but then it would drift into other things. I mean, we were solving problems with the world. We had determined the best coaching style for our Dallas Cowboys to return back to Super Bowl champions. We had it all solved. And then I would be standing there still talking and I'd hear my phone make a text sound from my wife. And I knew what that meant. That meant I done sat there and talked for probably 30 or 45 minutes. And she was worried that I'd been held up just to see where I was at. And I would peek down and they would say, "Where are you at?" So I would say, "Just leaving the office," and we'd say bye. Now, in closing, those conversations brought me to another side of Mel. I got to see things that he did. Mel was not a bragger. He was proud, very proud, but he never bragged. He did not want you to know what he had accomplished or what he had done. Because you look back, he was so instrumental in bringing our nonprofits, our non-emergency responders into this mix as well, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army. But it's things like I would talk about my parents going to a Vietnam veterans tribute at Fort Bragg. That's how I found out he was in the U.S. Army. He never flaunted it. Also, there was a picture in his office of him standing by a fire truck. And with me having my background in the fire, I still like fire trucks, they'll never go away. So I had to inquire about his picture. And that's when he told me, when I went back, and he called it Hampton, I think Institute, but to make sure it's correct back then, or he may have said Hampton University. He was like, "Yeah, when I was in college, we had a volunteer fire company that I was a firefighter on." And that's how I found out. Otherwise, you would never hear about it. Any of you that knew him, you would understand he never bragged or even broadcast what he had accomplished. And in closing, what I hope I can do is take some of the knowledge I learned from him and not let it go to waste. I want to pass it on to other people in the field and other fields because it goes across all realms. And I also want to make sure that I pay it forward to that next generation so they not only understand the information, but they respect who it came from. And I think now you will have a short video.
Also, now you know why across the state we know Mel as Papa Bear, because of all these things, all the wisdom that came from Mel, and that's what we considered him, and that's what we called him, was our Papa Bear. Mel was always the gentleman, so he's a very traditional guy. So when we went places, we go to meetings as an office, he always made sure that he was holding the door for the ladies when you enter the building or when you exit the building.
He was from old school and he was always very courteous.
He had a dry sense of humor. You'd never know that he had the humor that he had because he was always professional on the job.
One day we had been out for a meeting and I asked why he did not show that sense of humor inside the office, and he said that was a different location.
But when you had some casual conversation with him, he had quite a list of stories to tell that would draw a smile to your face.
And Mel never was the type of person that would make himself the show person. He let us have our own projects and our own way of doing things.
He allowed his staff to get exposure. He gave us the opportunities to lead meetings, to have a voice in high-stake conversations.
Mel was not a micromanager. He let you pretty much do. He'd basically give you a job description and let you run with it.
I would take certain things to him, especially in the beginning, and he would think they were amusing, and he would just kind of laugh, give you that chuckle, that Mel chuckle, and he would say, "Okay, you run with that and let me know how it goes."
I think also a little bit of I'll give you enough rope and see what you do. And fortunately, I never accidentally got tangled in my rope or hung myself. So the more you did that, the more rope he would give you.
Mel very much took pride in his family. He was a family man.
When we went to Chicago about our grant meeting this past year, and you could tell he was very proud of his family because it was on Halloween that day, and he'd received some pictures of his family at his older son's dentist office. They were in Halloween costumes, and he was showing it, but you could tell just a proudness as he was showing his wife, son, and all the staff that was dressed up. And
you know, when we make requests for certain upgrades and equipment and concepts and ideas on the job, you know, we knew that we'd be facing a possible no.
We could need to go to the doctor or anything else, or car inspections, and he would kind of give us a gruff little
But one thing Mel never said no to was if I needed to take off to attend a family event or to participate in something with my kids.
When it came to the grandkids or nieces or nephews, he was a big softie.
Any issues, my children being sick, my wife having health issues or whatever, he was very understanding, especially with family, funerals and stuff like that. He always made sure that you were there for your family.
That's what grounded him, and that is what over the years I want to continue to ground me in my profession, that I may stay balanced and focused and realize that family is first and foremost.
Mel was a great leader because he didn't panic. You never saw Mel panic at anything. He was always straightforward and he was always calm.
It's just when we have had to open the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, you could tell that it was just like another day at the office. He was very comfortable, very calm.
In the midst of chaos and confusion and a lot of uncertainty, just his mere presence of trying to calm people down and say, if we don't know the answer now, we'll figure that out.
He's made the perfect emergency manager because when everybody else is losing their head, he was the one that was keeping his head.
There is a plaque that he had, a sign that he had in his office, blessed are the flexible.
For they shall not be bent out of shape.
For they will not get bent out of shape. And that has stuck with me over the years.
And it was still up in his office, even at the new location that emergency management moved to. So that old sign, that faded yellow sign, comes to mind when I think about Mel.
And I understand now the meaning of that and how important that is. And he taught me a lot, and I'll take it with me over the years. So can never forget the impact that he's made in my life, the lessons that he has taught me. And I think Winston-Salem and Forsyth County is certainly a better and a safer place because of the impact that Mel has had and the program that he has grown over the years in emergency management.
Good afternoon. I just want to say to the Sadler family, Mel was a leader among leaders. He's one who would step back and allow the other leaders to move forward. He understood what that meant. My experience with Mel is I would see him at public safety committee meetings or city council meetings or any of our meetings. We would get together and try to plan for weather events or whatever unusual circumstances we thought we might be faced with. And I would always say, "Hi, Mr. Sadler." And he'd say, "Young lady, my dad is Mr. Sadler. You call me Mel." And I said, "Yes, sir." And from that point on, he was Mel. I just want to take this time to say to Mrs. Sadler and to the rest of the Sadler family, thank you so much for sharing your husband, your father, your grandfather, your brother, your uncle with us. You don't know how much it meant to us and how much of a better place we are here in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County because of his leadership. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to keep this upbeat because I'll cry. I'm not even gonna look down here. I'll just very quickly say that I walked, it's a public safety meets the second Monday in the month, public safety committee, and Mel and I just happened to be on the same schedule a lot. And we walked into that meeting, we were coming in the parking lot, going in the building a lot. We were on the same schedule, And the part about him not getting excited, and I mean, that is absolutely correct. He had one gear, and that was the gear he stayed in all the time, you know. And I'm pretty tall relative to most city employees. I can outwalk about anybody else who works for the city of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County for that matter. And, you know, so I get out, man, I take off to the building, and I was talking to Mel, and I'm just talking away, and Mel, he'd be 40 or 50 feet. It didn't matter. He had his pace, and that's the pace he went at. And you could talk all you wanted to, but you'd be talking to yourself after a few minutes. I mean, after just a few seconds, because he was going to be right back there moving at that same speed. But I certainly do miss Mel. I think about him often.
At this time, we have to ask the Chief Mayo and Chief Thompson to join us and the Sadler family to come forward, please.
And just so you know, the plaque has Mel's favorite quote on it, "Blessed are the flexible."
Amen. A great man. A great man. At this time, I'd like to call up Fire Chief William Trey Mayo for recognition of Fire Department retirees.
Well, good afternoon again, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Always also want to thank our fire department chaplain, Chad Armstrong, one of our hosts this afternoon. Chad, we certainly appreciate all the effort you put into our chaplaincy program in making it a success. So each year in anticipation of this celebration, I review the history of African Americans in the Winston-Salem Fire Department, and I always find it an interesting read. Black fire companies are documented to have existed at least as far back as the late 19th century. And 3 times that we know of around the turn of the 20th century, the Winston Fire Department hosted the North Carolina Colored Volunteer Firemen's Association conventions. And then following the merger of Winston and Salem, the volunteer fire companies, over a period of a decade or so, both black and white, they just sort of slowly faded away. And by the early 1920s, all the volunteer fire companies, both black and white, they were gone. So for about 30 years, what was then the Winston-Salem Fire Department was all white. And that, of course, changed in March of 1951 when Raphael Black, Willie Carter, Lester Irvin, John Henry Ford, Robert Greer, John Meredith, George Penn, and John Thomas were hired and would eventually staff the first fully integrated fire station in North Carolina when Station 4 was on Dunleith Avenue. And we're honored this afternoon to have 2 of those original 8 with us, the only 2 who are still alive. And last year, if you were with us, you remember we made these 2 gentlemen honorary chiefs. And Robert Greer and Chick Carter, I see you all back there. I know it's a little more difficult these days, but if you all will stand up and be recognized, I'd appreciate it. These are 2 of the 8 who broke the ice way back in '51. So by 1967, the fire department was fully integrated, and then in 1980, one of the original 8, Lester Irvin, was appointed fire chief, the first black fire chief in North Carolina. between then and now, the Winston-Salem Fire Department has continued to lead, and the department currently has the highest percentage of African-American firefighters of any career fire department in the state, and has recently appointed the first female, Marlene Kosterka, and African-American division chiefs, Darrell Sawyer. Darrell is here somewhere. There he is back there. Congratulations, Darrell. And also the first African-American female, first African-American period deputy fire marshal, Angela Siles. She's here. There she is back there. Congratulations. First in the history department. So the department continues to establish a legacy of which I'm very, very proud to be a part of. And now I'm going to now turn it over to Assistant Chief Harry Brown to recognize retired firefighter Tony Thompson, and then Assistant Chief Tad Byram will recognize Fire Engineer John Powell.
Good afternoon. So I get the honor and pleasure to recognize a good friend of mine, Tony Thompson. When I actually, when we get to do these things, it is an honor. But sometimes, as most of you know, when you're looking at saying something good about somebody, sometimes you have to really, really dig down in the archives to find out, to pull out the good stuff. Well, with Tony, it's not like that. I've known Tony since 1989 when he first came to the department. Over the years, Tony and I became really, really good friends. When he left the department, he kind of part and go your ways, but I see Tony a lot coaching basketball. Tony has the patience, most patience than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I've watched Tony sit on the sidelines. You have a coach over here raising Cain, fussing, throwing stuff, yelling, screaming, and Tony, even if it's a bad call, just sit there kind of mellowed out. So, Tony's a really, really good guy. He's always been into serving the public. Even after he left the fire department, he got more and more into dealing with the youth, coaching AAU basketball and things of that nature. So it's really my honor and pleasure to recognize Tony as one of our award winners this year. And we do have a short, brief video interview for Tony.
When I was 21, I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. College wasn't working out at that time, so I was trying to figure out something that I wanted to do to not waste time and waste money as I thought I was at that time. So I actually had a friend who had just started with the fire department, and he was telling me he was going through training, and I was thinking to myself, I said, that might be a nice thing to do. So I started talking to some other firemen that just knew her from around, and they told me some of the things that they were doing, experiencing, and going through the training and things like that. So I thought, hey, I'll go ahead and give it a try. So I went and I went down and filled out an application, and they called me. So from that point, the process just started, and before I knew it, I was in rookie school. The thing that probably had the biggest impression on me as a firefighter was actually my first fire. I was working at Engine 4, which is on Martin Luther King Drive, and we had a fire on Christmas Eve, and we went out, and it was, we had been to some fires before that. I also had another rookie that came in with me, and we were pretty good friends. But this one was the first one that they said that we actually had someone in the house. So that kind of just changed everything and how you felt and, how quickly you moved. And when we got in, we actually had a fatality, and it was a child. And so at that point, I realized that, that this was a very serious job with heavy consequences, if we didn't know what we were doing, or if we didn't do some of the proper things to prevent kids from playing with matches and candles and things like that. So that was definitely maybe not only the most impactful fire I've ever been on or experienced, it was the most impactful thing that ever happened in my life. I would say that you have to have the right motive, and I think that you should be more focused on serving and trying to do what you can for your community. I don't think that if it's for financial reasons, this might not be the best way to go, because you'll get frustrated. But I think if you kind of, thinking outside of the box and maybe some things that you can do for your community to change things and maybe inspire some other people to do some things that maybe they didn't think that they could do before seeing you do it, then I think that this would be, public safety would be the way to go. But you definitely wouldn't want to do it for financial reasons.
So please welcome my friend, Tony Thompson.
Good afternoon. I'm here to honor and recognize Fire Engineer John Powell. I'm sure you've probably already looked through the program and you've seen all the great accomplishments that John has achieved in a relatively short while in our fire department. But John's not about that. He's not about the accolades and getting awards and stuff like that. He's a genuine person that cares. He wants to do a good job, and he wants to help his fellow man. And take time to think about this. And just as big as North Carolina is, out of all the 100 counties, all the thousands of firefighters in this state, they pick John to be the North Carolina Firefighters Association Firefighter of the Year. So I think that's a wonderful achievement. And Miss Sabrina Stowe asked me to tell something that I know about John. In 2016, I went to Edgecombe County to assist in operations after Hurricane Matthew hit. And as some of y'all know, this is not the first major hurricane to hit that area or to cause a major flooding disaster in Princeville. And I was in the Emergency Operations Center and looking at the computer and doing some paperwork, stuff like that, and I did a double take and I looked, and I was like, what's John Powell doing here? Well, at that point I found out he had a twin brother. And I'm sure his twin, James, was looking at me like I was looking at him like he was from Mars or something. But then John came down, and John and James shared their story with me. And I did not know that story until they took the time to tell me about what happened in 1999 when Hurricane Floyd came. And, just imagine you've lost everything, and the federal government's not replacing that, and you've got to quit school to go to work to support your family. And, that's just, unimaginable for a lot of us. And look where John is now. Right now he serves the community of the Old Greensboro Road area at Fire Station 17, and he's also a member of the hazardous materials team as well. One more thing I thought about from Princeville. When I was getting ready to leave to come home, James, John's brother, he was injured during a water rescue, and he tried to go on, but he couldn't. So there was nobody else to be the fire chief there. And so I talked to John, and John's like, can I do this? I said, well, let me talk to the chief. So I called Chief Mayo and told him what was going on. He's like, well, what rank is he? I was like, he's a firefighter. He's like, and so he says, well, can he do the job? And I was like, well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Yes, sir, he can do the job. And then he asked me, are you sure? I was like, yes, sir, yes, Chief. And John sure did. He did a great job filling in down there, and we're all proud of what John's accomplished. So at this time, we'd like to show you a brief video.
Well, I've always looked at firefighters as a benevolent service, and I wanted to do something positive with my life and to help other people. I would say the most memorable experience happened on a pub ed where we were speaking with young children, and one of the child that I saw when I was talking to, I can identify with him. I saw myself in him, and he said that he wanted to be a firefighter one day, and eventually he became one, and so that was nice to be able to contribute to that. I would say keep an open mind. There are going to be a lot of things that you're going to see that may not be something that you're familiar with, and remember that you are here to serve the public.
And this time, we'd like to ask Engineer John Powell to come up and be recognized.
And we're not following instructions. That's why people ask my wife to direct weddings. They don't ask me. Tony, you come back up here. We're going to get this squared away this time. We're going to take a mulligan.
Okay, it's all fixed. So at this time, we would like to call up our police chief, Chief Katrina A. Thompson, for the recognition of our police department retirees. Thank you.
Giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, to our great mayor, Alan Joines, our Mayor Pro Tem, Vivian H. Burke, to Chaplain Armstrong, thank you so much for being here today too, and to our honorees, thank you so much for your service. Before I get started, I would be totally remiss if I didn't ask you to join me in just another round of applause for the Winston-Salem Police Choir. Captain Watts, you've been sandbagging on me. I am so honored to stand here realizing that I am on the backs of so many people who trailed away to make it possible for me to even have this mic this afternoon. I want to start out by saying that none of us would be in the place that we are as African Americans had it not been for the tenacious and for the just sheer grit of Mayor Pro Tem Vivian Burke. For over 40 years, she's worked hard, fighting for what's right and what's fair in law enforcement and public safety when it comes to African Americans and minorities. And I say to Mayor Pro Tem Burke, your fight was not in vain, and we are very grateful. And now the moment we've been waiting for. I just want to share just quickly with you my experience as a young officer coming up through the Winston-Salem Police Department. Having spent the last 24 years of my life here, again, as I stated, I realize I stand on the backs of so many who have gone before me. As a young officer coming through, I remember going out and actually, we were actually in rookie school, and I was the only female in my class, and having been in class with spending better part of 28 weeks in class with basically 19 other males who would listen sometimes and sometimes they wouldn't. I remember after we took our class picture, we were real close to graduation. We walked back into the Public Safety Center. We took our picture in front of the Public Safety Center. And keep in mind, I started January of 1994. And Chief Red retired in December of 1995. So I had a very short window where 6 months of that time was in rookie school. So this time we're actually walking back into the Public Safety Center, and right by the elevators as you enter the building, on your right-hand side are some stanchions and ropes. And they're there for a reason. And members of my class walked in and immediately started jumping over those ropes. And just then, without even realizing it, Assistant Chief Red was standing there, and he's just looking. And he says, "Gentlemen, do you know, or did it ever occur to you that those ropes might be there for a reason? How about having some order and respect in this building?" Chief Red may not know this, but we went back over to City Plaza where we were holding rookie school at the time, and we all paid for that in the form of push-ups in the parking lot. But we were taught order. Further in my career, it was very often that we would call out what we call 730 units, which were our forensics is what it's known today, or crime scene, which was what it was known back at that time. And so often, I would have the fortune of having Renee Schoaf to respond to some of my calls. And I don't care whether it's day or night, good or bad, sunny or raining, Renee was coming with a smile. And she took the time to explain to our victims how to clean the powder off that was used to lift fingerprints. And she let them know through her actions and her performance that their incident was the most important incident at that time. So I'm out of rookie school now, and I'm in field training, and I'm actually on the second floor of the break room and at the Public Safety Center, and we're on midnight shift. And Lieutenant Samuels, who was then Sergeant Samuels, we're standing there, and we get this call on this high-low tone on the radio. And so for us, we know that means it's something emergency. Well, we had a homicide out on Robbins Road, and he said, "Let's go." So we all did what we do. We ran to the car, and we're following, and we get out there, and sure enough, we have a victim. And while we're standing out there, we go inside, and we get the scene secured, and we got back outside, and he looked down and he says, "Look, there's the weapon." And he says to me, and my maiden name is Fambro, he says, "Fambro, your job is to stay on this weapon, and you are not to touch it, don't kick it, don't step over it, and don't let anybody else mess with it. You stay here until you are relieved by a detective with the Criminal Investigations Division." And I did just that. Daylight came before a detective with the Criminal Investigations Division came. And finally, I'll say, Jerry Evans, what can you say? Someone who spent 31 years giving service to this community without receiving one dime as a reserve officer. What can you say? Thank you. I shared that with you all to let you know that things that we do right now, people are paying attention to. They're watching and they're noticing. And it could be something that you say, a look on your face, an action that you make. that can make the difference in someone being successful, feeling good about themselves and how they're doing their jobs, or learning what's right and what's order. And so I ask my staff, and I constantly remind myself of the importance of my actions and the things that I say to people. And so I say to our 4 honorees, thank you so much for making the impression in my life and in my career that you've made. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Wilson Weaver to step to the podium, and he will introduce a crime scene supervisor, Renee Schoaf. He will be followed by Assistant Chief Natasha Miles, who will introduce retired Assistant Chief Oliver Redd. She will be followed by Assistant Chief Scott Bricker, who will introduce retired Lieutenant Jimmy Samuels, and then Captain William Penn, who will introduce retired Reserve Officer Jerry Evans.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Thank you also, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, Chaplain Armstrong. We really appreciate your assistance in being here with us. I am Wilson Weaver. I am the Assistant Police Chief over the Patrol and Special Operations Divisions. Let me ask Lillian Renee Edgerton Schoaf to join us on stage. Lillian Renee as we call her, Edgerton Schoaf, is a native of Lewisburg, North Carolina. She graduated from Riverside High School a few years ago. Renee Schoaf graduated from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, NCA&T, with a Bachelor of Science degree in Applied Sociology. She's a member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Renee was employed as a juvenile probation counselor in the 21st Judicial District for 18 and a half years before her employment with the City of Winston-Salem Police Department. Upon being employed by the police department, she was employed in the identification unit and was promoted to crime scene unit squad supervisor in 1992. Renee retired from the department in January of 2003 after serving 16 and a half years in the Winston-Salem Police Department. She's a member of Our Lady of Mercy Catholic Church. She has one daughter, Latoya Denise Schoaf, who resides in Matthews, and one granddaughter, Kiana Renee Ebanks, who's a student at UNC Charlotte. Renee, congratulations. Thank you. We appreciate you being here with us. Would you like to speak? Okay.
I'd just like to thank the department for bestowing this honor upon me, and to thank my family and friends for sharing this special honor today. Thank all of you. I was in the midst of changing careers, and a friend of mine who was a juvenile police officer recommended that I apply for, it was called identification at the time that I applied. I applied, was accepted, and the rest is history. I was processing outdoor homicide scene, and the detective in charge of the case wanted aerial photographs. So I had to climb up on the roof of the building, and as a fireman held my ankles, I hung over the side of the building and took the photographs that the detective needed. During your 6 months of training, if they still do 6 months of training, take lots of notes for future references. Any scene that you go out to process, be sure to process it thoroughly, even though you may think it's nothing to the incident, because to the victim, it is significant.
Good afternoon. Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Burt, and, Chaplain Armstrong. Good afternoon, everyone. As I received the bio for Mr. Red, I began to browse through and try to familiarize myself with his background. And I began to think that, my time with Mr. Red was very short, and I don't recall any lengthy conversations with him other than speaking as in passing. As Chief Thompson mentioned, he was a man of order and service. And so where I come from, in a small town in Alabama, you don't speak unless you're spoken to, and when adults are speaking, you stay quiet. And so I moved here in 1993 and started with the police department. And as I browsed through Mr. Red's bio, I thought, wow, he's a very wise man. But it brought to mind, even though I didn't know Mr. Red personally, I had the very distinct honor of knowing his father, Mr. George Red. And I didn't know his father as a police officer who also retired from the police department. I knew his father from years of being up at the fairgrounds. And in more previous years, as he laid on his sick bed, I visited with him many times. And I thought during those times that although, as reading through this, although I didn't know Mr. O.D. Red, the fruit can't fall far from the tree. So I feel like I know you as well. And I am honored to stand before you to introduce Mr. Red to you. Mr. Red is the son of George S. Red, Jr., who was one of the city of Winston-Salem's first black police officers, and the son of Helen Solomon Red, a retired school crossing guard for the Winston-Salem Police Department. He graduated from Atkins High School in 1962. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force, where he served from October 1962 to October 1966, where he received an honorable discharge with the rank of sergeant. Chief Red joined the Winston-Salem Police Department in 1967 and completed his recruit training on June 8, 1968. Chief Red received the Counselor's Award, an award given to the best all-around recruit, making him the first black recruit to receive one of the two awards at the completion of training. In March 1973, he was promoted to sergeant and assigned as the first black training specialist and assigned to oversee the training of police recruits. December 1975, he, along with Sergeant Johnny Landon, became the first black police lieutenants. May 1978, he, along with Sergeant Landon, also became the first black captains. Chief Red was assigned to the Special Operations Division. June 1980, Chief Red became the first police major and was assigned to oversee the Administrative Services Bureau. In July of 1995, he was the first black assistant police chief. As assistant chief, he was assigned to oversee the Investigative Services Bureau and later the Field Services Bureau before retiring on December 29, 1995. Chief Red received a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Winston-Salem State University in 1972. He received a Master's of Science degree from North Carolina A&T University. He also completed the prescribed course of study at the University of Louisville, Kentucky, School of Justice Administration, Administrative Officers Program in 1976 and completed advanced studies in 1984 and 86. Chief Red completed the prescribed course of study for the Municipal Administration program at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Chief Red was awarded the North Carolina Criminal Justice Training and Standards Council Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate in April of 1975. He was awarded the Winston-Salem Police Department Medal of Merit commendation in August of 1984 after disarming and arresting a man while off duty who shot his wife and his infant son with a sawed-off shotgun. Chief Red is a Gold Star member of First Baptist Church. He is a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Chief Red is a graduate of Leadership Winston-Salem class number 4, but I'll say that class 2017 was the best. Chief Red also has 2 children, Chris and Crystal Red, and he also has 4 grandchildren. Mr. Red, will you join us, please?
I entered the police service after getting out of the military. During the 60s, everybody went in the military. You had to draft and the like. But I went into the Air Force, was there 4 years. I was a policeman in the military and received training there. And like other folk, you know, you take what training you've had and you come out of the military and you look for a job that's comparable to that. Well, I don't have any war stories I could share with you, but I do think that I was in the police department when the police department evolved, when it changed, when it became more inclusive inside as well as outside the department. I was there when Orville Powell was the city manager, Jack Bond was the deputy city manager. Chief Surratt was the police chief. We had Alderman Burke come on, Alderman Newell, Mr. Larry Little, Mr. Wumble, and Bob Norlington, to name a few of the board members who thought that there was a need to get out front of what was going on in the country as it relates to the police and the community. And I was there when that started. And I've been fortunate to see it progress to where we are today. You know, it took a while. It takes a while, you know, and I'm sure the department is still evolving. But I think with Barry Roundtree as chief, I think things start leveling off. And I think with the new chief, they're going to continue and progress, and, you know, so. Well, I think all police chiefs who talk to new recruits, first of all, tell them, you know, the golden rule. Do unto others that you have them do unto you. You're talking about, you know, treat people like you want to be treated, you know, like it's your mother or your father, your sister, brother, your next door neighbor. And all of them do that. But also you tell them to make sure that at the end of the day, you go home. So you have to be safe. You have to take care of yourself.
Good afternoon. I have the honor of recognizing retired Lieutenant James C. Samuels, and Jimmy and I did not have the privilege of working around each other much through the years, but as I looked at his brief bio, I thought to myself, that's Jimmy right there, very humble and to the point. So
Jimmy Samuels is a native of Winston-Salem. He graduated from West Forsyth High School in 1977 and attended the University of Kansas. Samuels joined the Winston-Salem Police Department in 1981 after years of being the manager at Radio Shack. He was promoted to lieutenant on June 25th, 2001 and retired on June 1st, 2010. He served as a board member with the Youth Opportunities and also worked closely with Maya Angelou for 28 years. Lieutenant Samuels is married to Angela Samuels, and they have 4 children: Alicia Samuels, Jimmy Samuels, Donnie Parker, and Andra Parker. He has 10 grandchildren, and he's also a member of Emmanuel Baptist Church. Jimmy, if you'll please join us up on stage.
I always looked at first responder work, specifically police work, as a very respectful job and a job that I could feel respected and have a lot of self-respect. And I liked helping people. I know that sounds kind of corny, but I really liked helping people, and I most detested people that victimized other people. So that was the main reason I wanted to become a police officer, the respect piece. I don't know that there is a one, I can give you categories. Most memorable in the positive would be solving cases where, like I said, people were victimized and you had enough and were able to bring justice to the violators. And the other part was later on in my career, when I became a lieutenant, my main goal was to help people, officers internally, ones that were having some issues maybe with their work or even personnel issues. My focus was more internally there, and I felt that I was able to succeed at doing that. The big thing, and it's stressed, it was stressed when I was still working, was to manage the stress. You'd be surprised what you get used to. You may feel like you're not stressed, but you can be stressed and not really feel it, and it can come out in other ways. The biggest way is to find a way to deal with the stuff that you see, and you're going to see a lot of horrible stuff. Find a way to deal with that. And when you're not working, get away from police work. Get away from anything to do with law enforcement. And if possible, have friends that have nothing to do with law enforcement to kind of pull you away from that. That will help. That's what helped me.
Good afternoon. I stand before you humbled in full recognition that I stand here because of the sacrifices of some of the very folks sitting in front of me and behind me. With that said, I get the distinct honor of presenting Jerry Evans, a native of Winston-Salem, born and raised, graduated from Reynolds High School. Upon graduation, he started his first tour of service by enlisting with the Marines. After serving our nation for 4 years, he came back and he attended and graduated from Forsyth Tech Community College, where he earned a certification in HVAC. He then began a 29-year career with Sara Lee. While at Sara Lee, he decided that wasn't enough. So he then became a reserve officer with the Winston-Salem Police Department in 1986, where he served our citizens for 31 years. Upon retiring in October 12, 2017, I think his statement he made says a lot about him. in a time when we should be thanking him, he made the statement, "I have really enjoyed being afforded the opportunity to protect and serve the citizens of this city for 31 years. Like Chief Thompson said, he did that for free. Now, for recruiting purposes, I gotta let you know, we will pay you to work for 31 years. So please don't let that get out that we expect that. But that just tells you about him. Not a surprise that he didn't stay retired long. He's now working at East Penn Manufacturing Company, has 2 children, Rodney Evans, Jerry Evans, and 2 grandchildren, Camden and Alyssa. I present to you retired Reserve Officer Jerry Evans.
Well, when I retired out of the military, I always had a desire to get in law enforcement. And then when I came back to Winston here, I ran into a friend of mine named Cornell Gwynn, which they called him Kingfish, which was reserve at the time. And I talked to him about the Department and Reserve program. And I had started working at the time, but I was able to get into it because I like dealing with people, being mentor for kids and stuff like that, and working with the community. And the police department allowed me to do that. I guess my most memorable experience looking back through the years is when we had the 2 presidential debates back in Winston at the time, and I was able to work there and able to meet a lot of the candidates and stuff like that. And during the time back in the spring when we had all the street festivals and stuff like that, and people was able to come out, enjoy the festivities and stuff, and we was as officers was able to meet with them. The advice I would give them is to be true to yourself and be true to others, because all people want is respect. And as long as you respect them, whether it's down to the homeless person or the person that just robbed the 7-Eleven, people want respect and people are human. With that being said, I just think it'd be the right thing to do if you can, just stand and give all these honorees another hand, because there's a lot of hard work they do, a lot of late night work, a lot of horrible scenes that they see. They do it all just to protect the citizens of this city. They do it all to protect you, to make sure that you can sleep at night, to make sure that you can walk the streets of Winston-Salem in a safe way, to make sure that when you dial 911, there's someone on the other end that's going to send someone out to answer your call and answer your need. So I say thank you to all of them. Amen. You may be seated. So, at this time, we're going to call on Gary Lash. There he is. We're going to call on Gary Lash, District Recreation Supervisor, for our coloring and essay contest recognition.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, remarkable honorees, good afternoon to you all. I'm Gary Lash, District Recreation Supervisor with the City of Winston-Salem Recreation and Parks Department under the direction of Mr. William Royston. Each year, in conjunction with the Black History Month program, the Recreation and Parks Department sponsors a art and essay contest for the kids, the children in all of our 17 locations. Today, we would like to honor those who were winners across our city. Like the police and fire department provide safety and protection for us all, the recreation centers provide a safe place to play and have fun. So at this time, I would like to present you a short video of a couple of our essay winners.
Why do we celebrate Black History Month? We celebrate Black History Month because people in history fought for African American rights. Back in those days, African Americans did not have equal rights, and Caucasians had more rights. 2 people who made big impacts were Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. Martin Luther King Jr. made speeches about equality. He is famous for a speech he gave called "I Have a Dream." He was a civil rights activist. Rosa Parks also helped in the civil rights movement. She was an activist too. She resisted the separation of African Americans and Caucasians on the bus. She started the Montgomery bus boycott. We celebrate Black History Month because people fought hard for African American rights, and so they could be treated the same as everyone else.
My favorite black athlete is Jackie Robinson because Jackie Robinson was born January 31st, 1919. He lived with his mom. His dad left when he was 6 years old. He played all sports, including football, basketball, baseball, and track and field. He graduated from UCLA and went on to the Negro Leagues, and then he was selected by the Dodgers. The first ever Negro to play in the league, he stole 197 bases hitting, .311 batting average for his career and entered the Hall of Fame. He died in 1972. Jackie Robinson inspired the league to let blacks play in the league. Even though he was picked on, he still made his debut as the best player in the league. He had 137 home runs, was Rookie of the Year, and was a 6-time All-Star. Who also influenced civil rights. He is my favorite athlete because he changed the way whites think about black people.
Now at this time, I will call the names of the winners. If you are present, please come forward. Sergeant Kobaski will hand you your certificate and just stand here at the front. In the Black History Art Contest, our kindergarten through first grade winners, Sanaya White, first grade from Old Town Recreation Center. Mr. Zion Green, first grade from Sedge Garden Recreation Center. In the second and third grade division, Mr. Cameron Simmons, third grader from Polo Park Recreation Center. Mr. Damian Sepulveda, third grade, also from Polo Park Recreation Center. In our fourth and fifth grade division, Miss Kaylee Wright, fifth grader from Old Town Recreation Center. And Mr. Quentin Stone, fourth grader, also from Old Town Recreation Center. In the Black History Essay Contest, Mr. Brandon Rory, a fifth grader from William C. Sims Recreation Center. Ms. Tashea Ross, sixth grader from Polo Park Recreation Center. Mr. Christopher Caldwell, seventh grader, William C. Sims Recreation Center. And finally, Mr. Ural Harris, seventh grader, William C. Sims Recreation Center. Could you please give them all a round of applause? And I would like to say to the young people here, please let this moment resonate with you for a lifetime. Thank you.
I don't know the reason, and I'm not standing here in judgment, but it would have really been nice for those young people to have been here. As I said, I don't know what the reason may have been. Could be very valid. But it's times like this that young people need to see other young people doing positive things so they can encourage one another. It's times like this when we need to see our young people that they're not all gangbanging. They're not all out here doing the horrible things that we see on the news. Because see, that's what the news does. If they select those, I don't see WXI here today to see these young people. I don't see WSOC any stations. I don't see anyone here today to recognize these positive children. But as I said, don't know the reason, no idea why the others weren't here. But my prayer is that whatever their situation is, that God will continue to bless them, that they will stay on a positive path that they're on right now, and to continue to do great things in their life. And my friend back here, Bishop Fulton here, I think I met this young man. Where were you, middle school, elementary? Which one? About elementary school, somewhere? But I just want to recognize him because he's just been sitting at the counter calm. Everyone else has had their name said, but I just want to recognize you today. All right. At this time, we will have another selection from Ms. Maya McCoy.
Folks without homes living out in the streets, and the drug habits, some say they just can't beat. Muggers and robbers, no place seems to be safe, but you've been my protection every step of the way, and I want to say thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. Yeah.
I say thank you to all of you that have taken out the time this afternoon to be here to help us honor our honorees, to help us honor these young people that were here today. So at this time, I'm going to call up my friend, the bishop. He's going to come up here and he's going to give us he's going to bless the food and he's going to give us it says invocation, but around my way, I think it's a benediction. We're getting ready to leave here. Well, come on, Bishop.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Frank Stowe. To the first responders, thank you for the work that you have done. To the families of the first responders, thank you for loaning us your husbands, your fathers, your family members. It's now time to go, but I want to acknowledge my boss as well, Mayor. Dr. Vivian Burke has given me instructions to honor Judge Todd Burke, my good friend, and I'm glad that we're honoring Judge Burke because I'm going to need his assistance. I'm going to have a class action lawsuit against what happened here tonight. Reverend Frank Stowe, I sent out a text message to all of my preacher friends that he's trying to take our job. Captain Watts, don't laugh, you're in it as well for directing the choir and the Winston-Salem Police Department. Can we give God some thanks for them tonight? Before we leave out, I've been given directives that the honorees will go out first, and those who are directing this event will show you where to be seated before we eat, and you will be served first. I'm going to bless the food, and then we're going to have the benediction. Let us pray. Some have food but have no love. Others have love but have no food. We have both food and love tonight. So we thank you, God, for blessing us. Bless this food. Let it be for the nourishment and strength of our bodies. Continue to bless our awardees tonight. Continue to bless our first responders. Now unto him who is able to keep us from falling. Go in peace, knowing that you're blessed when you go out and you're blessed when you come in. In Jesus' name we pray. Go in peace.